Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. It's Candy here and I'm in my art studio today because I want to film today my monthly happies video, so my July happies. But the front of the house is really noisy with the traffic going past. When I open the windows it's just too noisy, and it's really muggy today and I was melting in there and I got to the point where I couldn't breathe. So I've come to the back of the house, which is a little bit quieter apart from the dogs barking and chasing the pigeons, but the door's open right in front of me. I've got a breeze, it's so much nicer. So welcome to my art studio for my July. Gosh, July happy. July has just felt so emotional for me. It was a real confronting month where I feel like my mental health came into stark focus, and it confronted me because of change. My youngest, I've got 3 kids, and my youngest, my only boy, left primary school in July. It was his last days at primary, the last school run where I walk the kids into school, holding his hand. He still held my hand right up until the last day. And I know once he goes to high school with my middle daughter Poppy next September, then that is all finished. So it was massive for me. It was a huge change. I found it hard, I really did. It really confronted me. And of course the garden as well has been getting chaotic. There are changes in the garden which I've also realised I was struggling with, and it's just, I was confronted by my inability to accept change, and the fact that I love things so much I don't want it to change, and the last thing I want to do is to turn into a smother of a mother and not to be able to go with the flow and change. But it was confronting. I had to confront things in myself. However, I have to start by saying that although I found it hard, goodness me, I am so proud of my 3 kids. All 3 have had fantastic times at school. Busby was awarded a big shield because he won the Citizenship Award at the end of the year, which was amazing. When he collected it, he was told it was for kindness and compassion to everybody, and that's exactly how I describe him. He's just golden. So that was amazing. Tilly's been really good. Poppy's been fantastic all through the year. Glowing reports from all 3 of them. They did some writing. Like you can see, we're having drinks today, guys, because when I realised I was coming in here, I collected all the things up that I wanted to talk about and I put them in my huge ice bucket. So it kind of makes sense to me because we're having drinks together with friends. So I wanted to show you some of the writing that got sent home. Now Busby did the most incredible story, which I would have read to you, but I think he's got it at his dad's at the minute. But this is Tilly's note that she did for me at the end of the term, and it says, "Hi my lovely sunshine mommy and Rupert and Luna, you are all rays of sunshine, and tonight for my dinner can I have a wrap?" Just absolutely wonderful. I loved it. So I got Busby's story got given to me, which blew me away. Tilly came home with a note, and then Poppy, because she realised that I was really feeling that transition in motherhood and struggling a little bit with it, she did me a little colouring letter, and she did it in the style of how she used to write to me when she was 6 or 7, and it was just so lovely, and I really cried. I'm not going to share it because it's really personal, and she's the typical teenager of the house. I don't think she'd really want me to share it, but it was just special, and it just shows my kids' heart. So writing from the kids, a change in motherhood, massive things in July. With being confronted with my inability to accept change, I also came along with a confrontation where I'm also stuck. I've said before, I'm quite agoraphobic. I've got some really destructive patterns of behaviour that I'm stuck in, and it all just boiled up like a mirror being put right in front under my nose to confront me with it. And I realised I needed to get out the house more. We'd been really in serious lockdown here with Tilly being more vulnerable. Even though I'm double vaccinated, she's still at risk, so things are still quite quite challenging really, but I just knew I'd got to get out the house. I was going completely stir crazy. So one weekend, me and the kids, we went to find a field of flowers. Now this is a field of flowers that I'd spotted on the school run between dropping my middle daughter off at high school and driving to my little boy's primary school, which is through country lanes. I'd spotted through the hedge what looked like a huge field of purple flowers, and I was really intrigued to go and have a look. So one weekend I said to the kids, look, let's just get out of the house, let's go and see if we can find the field of flowers, even if it's just peeping through the hedge. It'll do us good to get out of the house. So off we went, and not only did we find the field of flowers, but it went on and on and on for miles, and there was a footpath up the side of it as well, which we found, and it was unbelievable. I did do a video about it called I'd Forgotten, and it was called I'd Forgotten because I had forgotten. I'd forgotten what it felt like to get out of the house, just to turn a corner and be surprised by a sight, and to feel a fresh place, and it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And then of course another trip away with one of my best friends, Cheryl. I mentioned to her that the UK tarot community were meeting up in Glastonbury, which is in a couple of weeks, but I am going to be with the kids in some holiday. They're with their dad at the moment this week, but that week I couldn't meet up because I'm with them. Hopefully we're going to Wales, so that will be good. I mentioned to my friend, why don't we go? Why don't we just book somewhere and just go for just 24 hours, just to get an overnight in Glastonbury. So we did that this month, and it was amazing, and it made me want to work with crystals more, seeing all the crystals in the shop. I bought the most beautiful amethyst. It's a big amethyst. It wasn't that expensive, it was only £15, but the fact that it called to me so strongly in the shop really sparked my curiosity to why. And I have been pulling out crystals this lunar star now to work with this month, and I've started reading about crystals, which is amazing. I saw the Chalice Well, we went to the Chalice Well Gardens, we saw the tour. Oh, it was wonderful. I bought this deck, which I did show in my Glastonbury haul. This is by Cheryl Yambrach Rose, and it just has made me really curious about her work, because this deck does in the book talk about locations, genius loci, and with many of the cards in the book there's actually photographs of place. And as you know, if you've watched my channel, I'm beginning to realise how important genius loci is. Just reading through the book and her work, it's kind of made me really curious. That there's the tour, really curious about her work and channeled artwork. But this deck, although I didn't work with it in July, it was a big part of July for me. Also in the Chalice Well Gardens, I bought a journal to go with this deck. Now I'd bought this deck in July, through it a few times and pulled the odd card, and it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And that's another big change that happened in July. I started getting a call to Mary energy. It ties in with Renee's artwork at Meadowlark Mystic as well, which I was really called to. Synchronicities everywhere. In the Chalice Garden, I could feel mother energy coming in, which is why I think I cried when I walked the water path, because nurturing mother energy is something that my life has been short of, shall we say. And then I walked into the shop, and yet more synchronicities. There was a big display of all the journals as I walked in. So I bought this journal ready to start journaling with, which is funny really, because I feel a little bit ungrounded last month because I wasn't journaling. I just seemed to stop journaling. I unconnected with the moon. and I unconnected with journaling, and I unconnected with writing my tarot readings down. I felt like I had ungrounded, and it's not a nice feeling. I think it tied in with the fact that I'd gone stir crazy in the house and I wanted to get out, and it made me not want to work as much with my tarot cards. I didn't want to be at my desk working with tarot cards and not feeling like I was outside living. So next month I'm going to start working with this book, Journaling the Tarot by Andy Matzner. I haven't worked with it yet. It's just full of journal prompts for every card you pull. I haven't worked with it at all yet. It's been on my bookshelf since I first got into tarot. I've never used it. It's time to pull something out. Books. Shall we get on to books? So what books have I read? I did do quite a bit of reading this month. This was one of the books I've read. It's the black edition of Death Note, which is a manga book. This contains volumes 1 and 2. It's a special edition with the black edge pages, and I absolutely loved it. Let me read you the back. Light Yagami is an ace student with great prospects, and he's bored out of his mind, but all that changes when he finds the Death Note, a notebook dropped by a rogue Shinigami death god. Any human whose name is written in the notebook dies, and now Light has vowed to use the power of the Death Note to rid the world of evil. Will Light's noble goals succeed, or will the Death Note turn him into everything that he fights against? It is absolutely brilliant. That's the Death God. This is Light, and the rest of the book is in black and white, and I am loving it. Now, I only started reading manga last year. I saw Katie Flowers talking about reading manga, and on some of her recommendations I bought some books. Last year I read I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, and it was in this book that I realised you start from the other direction. So this one, although it came highly recommended, I wasn't too sure about this one. Then I went on to the first edition of Children of the Whales, which has loads and loads and loads of books in the series, as does this series. Again, I left this book still wondering whether manga was for me. I think some of the blood and gore in this book, when presented to me visually, was quite hard to take, but the jury was still out. So I then tried this one. This is probably the least likely book to convince me, but I absolutely loved it. I love the story. I can't wait to find out what happens next. I am going to have to get the next book in the series. It's brilliant. Oh, right then. This one, this is a treat. This is the diary of Frida Kahlo, an intimate self-portrait. So this is a reproduction of her actual diary. It's just so special. And the bizarre thing was, I really felt a call to do all things Frida. I started getting my Frida books out. I was watching videos of her online. And of course, I pulled this book down to read. Little did I know that the day I pulled this book to read was her birthday. So it blew me away when I realised, and I just felt like the Queen was calling to me. The fact that I woke up with such an intense need to connect with Frida on the day of her birthday is her actual diary, and all the drawings within it reproduced. And you can see that it is part diary, it looks like part sketchbook as well. Her use of words at times is just so, as abstract as some of her art. It's just an amazing book. So this first bit is just all the diary reproduced page for page, and then at the back of the book you have it all again in black and white illustrated version with translations and discussions about what each page meant. So it really was like stepping into her world and hearing her own words that she would have said to herself, her own thoughts, and it was amazing, and I absolutely loved it. And then another amazing book that I've read this month was by our very own Amber over at Lavender Moon. She's got an amazing channel. Lavender Moon is the entity which you see here on the cover that she channels, and this book is a channeled book written by Amber. There she is on the back. This book is amazing. Now, I did get the wrong end of the stick with this book. I thought it was more of a ghost book, a paranormal book, because Amber's channel covers paranormal events as well. But it isn't. This is basically how to connect with your guiding self, the inner power within you, the fact that we're all connected. We're connected to this universal power, this universal consciousness. We can tap into an amazing universal source of energy, and through using that we can identify our passions, our desires. Using desire we can call down the energy to push us into the correct action and to basically sculpt our own lives. For want of a better turn of phrase, it's like a cosmic channeled self-help book, but it's just incredible. And I have had an experience which I've already talked to Amber behind the scenes about this month before I started reading this book. And when I started reading the book, I got to some of her first diagrams in the book on page 28, and I started drawing her over it because I recognised this. Something happened with me and I recognised this and I couldn't believe it. And I messaged Amber and said, I can't believe this. I know what this diagram is. And then I had a conversation, and then the rest of the book, it just all pans out similar. I am going to have to do a separate review of this book and a sharing of what happened, because it was extraordinary. But this book is extraordinary. It is so good. And I'm not just saying that because Amber's a friend. It is brilliant. I haven't really done my normal journaling this month, but now I'm talking about this book, it's reminding me that actually I did journal with this. I worked out my guiding compass, my guiding self compass. The guiding star compass is what you have to work out. It gives you lots and lots of diagrams to explain what you're doing. It gives you loads of prompts, loads of exercises to work through it. It's really a complex message that got channeled to Amber, but she delivers it so clearly and brilliantly. It makes it a really easily digestible read, and I loved it. I am definitely going to be reading this more than once. It's fantastic. I cannot recommend this highly enough. Wanting to continue to research and find out more about my own personal heritage, I bought this book, which is a full English translation of the Cavendish to read. Oh my gosh, I probably just slaughtered the pronunciation of that. Called To Celtic Mythology, and I want to go back to source. So this was a brilliant book. It's a translation by Morgan Daimler, whose writing is brilliant on this subject, and it's just a straight translation of this tale. It's a tale where the Dagda really appears, and you get an insight into his character. Also, his meeting with the Morrigan as well. Bridget appears in here as well, and I loved it. It took a couple of readings through. It isn't easy. I don't think any of these original source texts really are completely accessible in an easy way, but it's worth the effort. So that was brilliant this month as well. Fiction, I read The Vet's Daughter by Barbara Cummins. Now, I didn't realise at the time, but her writing has a very set style. It's very bleak, gothic, black storytelling, very, very bleak. I think personally that I would recommend the book. Really, I could recommend the writing because it's brilliantly written, but it's such a bleak story. It started off bleak, it got bleaker, it got bleaker. I was waiting for the twist, for something better to end, and it ended with a even bleaker event and then just stopped, and I was left just wondering what I'd just read. It's the story of the vet's daughter, an abused vet's daughter who realises she can levitate. It's a story of somebody chasing love, unrequited love and tragedy. Yeah, a bleak read for my July. I read this book, Magical Power for Beginners by Deborah Lee. It gives you so much practical fodder to consume for how to raise energy, why we raise energy, how to focus, what intent is, why it's needed, how to send energy, how to make sympathetic connections within spellcraft, how to use correspondences, how to piece it all together in ritual. If you want to do any spellcraft at all, what you have to do to achieve it. Brilliant read, a must read, especially if you're a beginner in witchcraft. It was brilliant. I cannot recommend this highly enough. The Iris Oracle got paired this month. By the way, I love this oracle so much. It got paired this month with a deck that I have been waiting for since the end of 2020 when it was ordered, and that's the Tarot of the Crone. It finally arrived this month after being lost in transit. I was very kindly sent another deck because it just became evident that my deck had probably got lost. It had been sent all over the world. We were getting tracking orders from everywhere. So after months and months and months of waiting, I got sent this deck and I love it, but it just paired beautifully with the Iris Oracle. So these two decks I worked together with virtually every day at the start of July. Look at those. Got some really powerful readings, really connecting me to changes I think that are going on in my life at the minute. So that's the Iris Oracle and the Tarot of the Crone. So paired it with a deck. I did two oracles by my friend, the lovely Shannon. She was really interested to see what I would make of them. Now these are Lucy Cavendish decks with artwork by Jasmine Beckett Griffith. So these big-eyed girls, which I absolutely love. These decks, although they kind of look like teenage girl decks, these decks, so this is the Shapeshifters one, these are the backs. These decks actually are really profound to work with. I love them. I have found them really, really powerful. So I did start working with these decks, surprisingly, with the Iris and the Tarot of the Crone. You wouldn't necessarily put them together, but they've worked beautifully. This one is the one that I worked more with through July. So the Oracle of Shadows and Light. These are the backs, and this deck is just sublime to work with. I can't even tell you how surprised I've been at just how powerful and marvellous this deck is. You wouldn't think that it would pair so beautifully with the Tarot of the Crone, but for me it really did. I had triple decks going. I had a daily card pull from here, and then a morning card pull from the Tarot of the Crone and the Iris, and an evening card pull from the Tarot of the Crone and the Iris as well. So daily I ended up with 5 cards drawn with this as a central card, and I love it. Then also throughout the month I worked with another oracle, this Celtic Moon oracle, which made me so nostalgic for days gone by when I used to travel around Ireland in the summers. And it just has made me desperate to go back and visit Ireland again and spend some time in Ireland. So a lot of these places I've been to. It's got all the goddesses in here that mean so much to me. It's a beautiful oracle deck to work with. Now usually with oracles I just pull one card and then put tarot either side. With this I didn't feel pulled to do that. This I used more like tarot. But this deck is beautiful. I did do a full review with links to the website. I will link that video down below. The Skelligs. Now I sat for nearly a week in a little room over the pub on the front, waiting for the boats and to be able to travel out to the Skelligs on the seafront. I could see the Skelligs in the distance, just waiting for a break in the weather to go and visit. So I spent a week staying just in view of this place, and the weather never changed and I never got out there. So again, this is somewhere where I'd love to go. So Ireland is somewhere where I've always been pulled to. There's the Morrigan. I had the most amazing first reading with this deck, which I talked about in my review video, where all the cards to do with the Maca came out, which really touched my heart, and it felt like a very clear message from this deck that this is going to be important for me. But then, like I said, I suddenly got confronted towards the end of the month with changes, with Busby finishing school. I took a step away from using decks daily, which I tend to do, and I just wanted something just really comforting. And for me, I find oracle more comforting than tarot. I just felt very vulnerable, very fragile, and I put my decks away and started just using 2 oracle decks for a nighttime pull. And I used these 2, the Mystical Healing Reading Cards by Ina Segal and Believe in Your Own Magic by Amanda Lovelace. And these were exactly what I needed. Again, very, very different art styles. Very different. But just beautiful messages when paired together. Look at that. I love that card. It was exactly what I needed this month. And I loved it. I think the stark difference in the art styles kind of helped to make synchronicities in the cards stand out, if that makes any sense. With the bird and one with the map, there are synchronicities that come out when I pulled these decks. I mean, look at this one, like the pose of the woman kind of mirrors that arm there, and the bird as well. Look at the birds there. So I did find, as I worked with this deck, that I was finding things like that happening all the time. So it was a great pairing for me. So then in the garden, all the sunflowers are out. The garden, like I say, has been confronting me this month, not helped by the fact that the dogs have escaped a few times from the garden. Although I've built fences and I put wire in hedges and I've built a series of gates going up the garden this summer, they still manage to get out. What happens is, as I close off one escape route, Rupert then works on a new escape route, and he created one. So if I take the camera off this stand and just turn you around, you will see the gateway at the moment has been barricaded in. I've had to put loose pieces of wood, and Rupert will still jump that at night. He spots pigeons and foxes and hedgehogs. I know we've got hedgehogs in the garden. and he just jumps over and he's gone. And I think that barricade on the fence has had quite a psychological impact on me. It's made me not go into the garden because it's a lot of effort to take it all down and then put it back up. And the garden feels like it's got away from me. The one escape route is where the pond has been dumped and I've got to strim it all to get to the hedge. It's just so much work. He's also pushing through into the vegetable garden. He's got an escape route now down the back of the sheds, which I've got to trim all the trees back to get to the back of the sheds to block that area now. And I think it's just so much work on top of work that the garden this month, unfortunately, it felt like an oppressive weight of demand and challenge and jobs. And with this idea of me wanting to get away and get out, I didn't want anything that made me feel tied to the house, and the garden was making me feel tied because of all these jobs that I have to keep doing. So yeah, me and the garden this month, there are jobs that have been abandoned and new jobs that have now taken priority. So thank goodness for Lunarsar, because Lunarsar got me back out there. It got me trimming back the roses, reconnecting with the plants. I had to cut back all the wild geranium, which I've loved, because that had all gone over. But the dahlias are coming out, the rudbeckia have flowered, the sunflowers are flowering. It all links to Lammas or Lunarsar, and it just felt like a soothing balm when Lunarsar hit, the sunflowers opened, and it just reminded me to take my time. There is a turning wheel. It doesn't all need to be done here and now and immediately. You can cut back some of these weeds, it's okay, and to breathe and take my time. So there's been a bit of a journey with the garden and the dogs escaping in July. The art studio has also been a soothing balm for my soul, which has felt a bit troubled this month. I decided to start working on an abandoned oil painting. I bought oil paints for myself 2 years ago, in 2019 for Christmas, because I've never oil painted and I wanted to give it a go. And that first painting I did, I was horrified with how hard I found it and didn't know what I was doing, and I put the paints away and they haven't come back out again. I've been exploring painting with watercolours because painting for me is all totally new. So I got into watercolours. The oils sat abandoned, the failed painting and the abandoned painting sat on the canvas. And out of the blue this month, I just thought, no, I want to give it a go again. I love oil painting. I think reading the Frida book as well and seeing her paintings in her diary, I just thought, no, I'm going to get the oil painting back out again. And oh my goodness, I've loved it. Just something seems to have clicked with it, and it went from me not being able to do anything that looked remotely like I was trying to achieve, to saving this painting and loving every second of it. So now in my art studio, I've got 2 easels up. I'm working on a second oil painting as well. It's still not finished, but what I've done, I'm really thrilled with. It's a autobiographical piece based on cloaking yourself with the power of the Morrigan and putting on her black feathers. And then finally on YouTube, things I've been loving on YouTube. Well, I took part in Lisa and Peggy's Say Yes to the Deck series, which aired in July. That was wonderful. I loved every second of that. Did order for myself the deck that I chose. I'm not going to say which one it is, just in case you haven't seen the video yet. It's going to be my birthday present to myself. So other things on YouTube which I've loved, I've absolutely loved Hannis' channel. And Pretty. I think she's had a confronting month, a bit like myself, She's done a couple, she did a video about that, but she also did a video where she got out and about trying to track down some of the sacred sites in one of her tarot decks. Spending time with Hannis this month on her channel kind of has been a confirmation that I'm not on my own. She did the most amazing travel vlog where she tried to track down these sacred sites, which I'll link below. Also on YouTube, I discovered a new channel. It's a channel called Style Like You. They did the What's Underneath project where women sit and slowly take off their clothes and talk about what's beneath their own personal style. It is just such a beautiful, life-affirming channel that strips us all back to our humanity. And I think in a month where I felt quite insular and quite panicked about my life, it has been such a comfort, that channel. It is full of powerful, bold, incredible women. So if you haven't ever watched Style Like You, then go and check it out. It's wonderful. I've loved watching all the responses to Anna Astral Lady Tarot's tag about the cliche tarot reader. It's a tag I want to do, I just haven't got round to it yet. Gosh, July has just been so busy with end of term stuff and laundry. I feel that that's what's taken up my last month. But even so, I've loved watching the responses that I've got to. I will do the tag eventually, I just haven't had time. And another channel that thinking back, I think this is the channel that made me start storing videos on YouTube. And that's how my channel began. I didn't even view it as a channel. I didn't even think about audience. I just started storing my gardening videos as a place to store like a gardening diary for myself. That's how my channel began. It was inspired by a channel called Roots and Refuge Farm, which is a family. It's Jess. She grows loads of tomatoes, and I've always loved her channel. It's a very Christian channel, because they're a Christian family, and I know that that might possibly put some people off, but I just think Jess is just such a lovely soul, and I love her attitude to gardening and her deep love of working with a garden and building a garden. It's something that just keys into something that's a fundamental part of who I am as well. This month she moved. They sold their farm. They always knew that they would sell their homestead and that they would have another move in them for their forever place. And this was the month, July was the month that move happened. So they are just starting out now. I think as of last week, they all arrived at the most beautiful piece of land. They've moved across the country and they're just starting out their new adventures on their new land. So if you haven't watched Roots and Refuge, now is a brilliant time to begin watching them, because Jess has just laid out her plans for the new site. She's walked us through the plans. It's really exciting. Now, I've watched Jess and Sweet Maya for years now, and to say that it was emotional watching them say goodbye to their old garden and to move is an understatement. I can't believe how many tears I've shed in July, along with other people in the comment section who also said, oh, we've sobbed all the way through that. Watching a family say goodbye, well, watching Jess say goodbye to the garden that she's built and loved and tended. Oh, it was just a real emotional month over at Roots and Refuge Farm, and for all of the viewers. So that has been a really big part of July as well. I think that's it for July. An emotional roller coaster, a time of change. It felt like a doorway to change on many levels for me. This container is now empty. I think I've talked about everything. A busy, emotional month of change for me. I hope yours was amazing. I hope that you had a great month. I hope you've got great plans moving forward. I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you so much for stopping by for another Happies video. And I hope you have an incredible August, and I will see you next time, guys. Bye.